Okay, I think we'll get started now, and our last few attendees kind of trickle in. Thank you everyone for being here with us today for our webinar. I'm Sarah Weber, Executive Director of the Association of California Symphony Orchestras, and I'm joined by my colleague Caroline Furman, who is our Conference and Programs Manager. We're really pleased you could join us. Before we get going with the webinar and I introduce our presenter, I just want to do a few housekeeping items. This is a 60-minute presentation. It will end at noon. You should all be in listen-only mode for our presentation, so you can hear it through your computer speakers. If you would like to participate through your phone instead of your computer speakers, you can click the use telephone option on your control panel and follow the prompts, and you will be connected. You can also ask questions at any time during the presentation using the questions pane in the control bar. We're going to hold the questions until the end, but please don't hesitate to ask. All you do is type in the question and hit send, and it should send that off. We will, at a couple of points during the program, have some interactive questions from our presenter, either poll questions, or she may ask for you to type in some responses into the question bar. So just we'll prompt you when we come to those times. And if you run into any technical problems today, you can email Caroline. Her email is here, cfurman@axo.org. She'll be standing by if anybody has any trouble with listening or using the webinar platform. And then just so you know, we will be recording the webinar for archival purposes, and it will be available after the presentation in our members only portal on our website. So I think that's it. Let's get going. I want to introduce our presenter today, Jenny Winton. Jenny's the co-founder of Mission Minded, which she founded in 2002, and since then she's created hundreds of powerful brands for nonprofits nationwide. She is passionate about helping nonprofit leaders clarify how they talk about their work, leading to greater organizational vitality and stability, revenues, and expanded ability to deliver on the mission. A former adjunct professor in the Graduate School of Business and Professional Studies at the University of San Francisco and a Marin County CASA volunteer, she's currently a member of the Development Executives Roundtable, Association of Fundraising Professionals, and Annual Fund and Admissions Committee at the Marin County Day School. Prior to founding Mission Minded, she was the Chief Marketing Officer for the American Red Cross Bay Area chapter. And besides being passionate about her work at Mission Minded, she is also passionate about Palm Springs, the Rolling Stones, and rescue animals. So thank you again, Jenny. I'm going to turn the time and the presentation over to you.
All right. Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate the introduction, and welcome to all of you who've taken this time out of your day to learn how to create a great communication strategy for your next case for support for your organization. I delivered this same workshop at the conference last year in Monterey, and I am delighted that, whoops, okay, I gotta show my screen, it looks like. It's not the presenter. There we go. Are you seeing my screen? I just want to confirm that.
I'm not seeing it yet. Oh, there we go. I can see it.
Okay. Great, great. Okay, so this same workshop was delivered at your conference last year, and Sarah and Caroline wanted to make sure that those of you who weren't at the conference, or perhaps you were and you just want to hear it again, could have access to this information. So I'm thrilled to be here with you today. This is the topic that I love. Mission Minded is a brand firm, and we believe that a brand that sets you apart is essential to any nonprofit success. We work with nonprofits of all kinds, including many arts organizations, and we help our clients uncover that big, bold idea that will help attract more people to their work. And we do that because we know that in today's world, a worthy mission is no longer enough, unfortunately. You have to show people what makes you important and relevant at every opportunity. And that's as true, you know, with fundraising as it is with overall arts marketing and getting people to attend organizations and performances. So that's the business we're in, and having a strong brand strategy, communication strategy for your campaign is just as important, as I said. Sarah mentioned that we started Mission Minded in 2002, and that was because we saw a problem in the nonprofit sector, and that is that so many people come to this work with a love of the organization that they're either working or volunteering for. Very few people, especially back in 2002, had a strong sense of marketing, let alone branding. I'm happy to say there are most organizations now appreciate that you need someone to do marketing at your organization, but brand is still a little bit of a confounding subject. So we really relish the opportunity to help organizations of every size and type understand how to create and leverage the brand to reach all of their goals, audience development and fundraising alike. Part of what I'm going to teach you today, and I'll go over this in just a moment, but the big picture here is that I want you to be able to talk about your next capital or endowment campaign with success and confidence. And part of what we're going to teach you is a piece of our minute message model. And it's all about how to communicate what you're doing in a way that helps people see you and pay attention and want to get involved. And there was a time when I shared a similar workshop with a group of people, and I'll never forget, there was this guy sitting in the front row. It wasn't a webinar, it was an in-person session, and this guy was sitting in the front row sort of copiously taking notes the whole time. And at the end of the workshop, I said, what are you working on? And he explained that he had started a nonprofit organization for Hispanic young men who played soccer, but because they came from low-income families, hadn't had the chance to play at the club level in middle school, high school, and going on to college, which put them at a disadvantage in many ways. They didn't have the chance for scholarships, they didn't have the chance to play professional soccer, and he was really passionate about bringing these boys the opportunity. And he had some success. He'd started a league, and he recruited soccer coaches from around the world to come and look at these boys, which was great. And he wanted to expand. And you can imagine, many of you on the phone are fundraisers, I'm imagining, what did he need to expand his program? He needed more money. And so I said, well, it sounds great, and I wish you a lot of success, and kind of send him on his way. And then a few weeks later, he called me and he said, Jenny, I just have to tell you what happened. I used what I learned in your minute message model to prepare to go and meet with a prospective sponsor. And he said, this is a sponsor that had turned me down twice before, a corporate sponsor, but I had the chance to go pitch them again, and I got a $500,000 sponsorship. And he said, I did not change a single thing about my program. I just changed the way I talked about it. And so, you might be sort of surprised to hear that. I hope you're inspired to hear that. This is really the power of what I want to teach you today. It's how to talk about your organization, your campaign, whatever it is that you're doing, in a way that helps people understand you and understand your importance, and most importantly, want to be a part of it. So that's a little bit about Mission Minded, but let's talk about you now, and let's talk about what you might be doing. I do want to run the poll really quickly, and I want to ask everyone who's online right now, how many of you are either actively involved in a capital or endowment campaign, or are planning for one or see one on your near horizon? All right, I think about half of you. Okay, the half of you not in a campaign or planning one, whew, lucky you. All right. Okay, great. Thank you for that. Okay, so if you're in a campaign, and by the way, everything I'm going to teach you is applicable, even if you're talking just about your annual fundraising campaign. I really am going to be talking specifically about capital campaign, but if you're just talking about how to raise more money on a regular basis from your donors and your ticket buyers, you'll take a lot away from this seminar. So if you're involved in a campaign of any kind, especially a capital campaign, you have probably already identified the need, like why you need the money at your organization. You've probably set your campaign financial goals, and you've probably created the rationale. Why do we need the money? We need it, and here's why. You may have also gotten artist renderings if you're building a new facility, a new building, a new performance hall. You may have already received some of your major gifts. This is particularly true if you've done a feasibility study and you're in the quiet phase of your campaign. by the way, I'm going to pause because I just used several jargon terms. And as Sarah said, I'm going to take questions at the end. Please jot down every single question you have, even if you think it's minor. I want to answer everything and make sure that you learn everything that you want to. So don't be shy about asking something. If I use a jargon term, that's my bad. It's not your bad for not understanding it, and I want to unpack it for you. So if you've done a feasibility study with a fundraising consultant, you may have talked to some of your donors and gotten big gifts. And of course, if you've gotten some gifts, that means you've probably already created some communications. So now what? What do you do now? Here's what we're going to talk about today and the rest of our time together. I want to teach you how to develop your campaign's communication strategy. And a sneak peek at that is that I want you to think first very deeply about your target audiences, and then create the communications that have the right balance of urgency, emotion, and rationale. We'll talk about how to do that today. I'm going to teach you what makes for a good campaign theme. Thematically, that might mean the title, but it might even go deeper than that. And then what makes a good campaign message? Those messages I was talking about that got the soccer guy a $500,000 sponsorship, I'm going to teach you some of that magic so that you can apply that right away to your own fundraising communications. All right, so that's our agenda. These are some campaign tools that you might end up wanting to create for any campaign. A theme, as I said, and a visual identity. You will want key messages, specific things that you're saying about your particular, I'm just going to call it a capital campaign for today, even though I know you might be running different kinds of campaigns. You will probably want a printed case for support brochure. Yes, it's a very digital world, but we find, especially with major gift fundraising, you still really need a compelling, powerful printed piece that you can use in a variety of ways. Either sending it to a donor in advance to request a meeting, bringing it with you as sort of a tool to use during a conversation, either a cultivation conversation or an actual ask for a donation conversation, or as a leave behind after a conversation, whether it's informal or formal. Leaving them with a really powerful printed piece can help you achieve your goal. Campaign videos are absolutely important to succeeding in your fundraising goal. There's no other medium available to us that allows us to tap into people's hearts and minds in the right proportion that really gets people sort of nodding and saying, yes, I want to give, I see why this is important. So videos done well are not inexpensive, and yet we urge all of our clients to invest in those because we've seen the results. You'll probably want some kind of a newsletter template so that you can update people that sort of matches your whole campaign theme. And then a campaign microsite, which is just a section of your existing website that gives updates on your campaign and shows people where you are and really keeps the campaign alive and well during its duration. So those are some of the tools you might need. There are probably others. You might want a sort of PowerPoint-ish or Keynote kind of a deck to take to certain audiences, and there might be things you need, but these are the biggies that most campaigns need. So I want to share a case study with you of another organization for whom we did capital campaign communications recently, and it's the Oakland Museum of California. They, with the urgency in their message, was basically that not we're an art museum or we're a history museum, but we help them dig a lot deeper to find the urgency. And the idea is that our country's in crisis, right? We can all look around and know that. There's a division in politics, gender, race, religion, and even in divisive geography. So the museum is saying we need to bring people together across these lines before the rifts become unhealable. Listen to this music, unhealable. Messaging. We're talking now, we're not talking about museum. This doesn't sound like a museum because we're trying to tap into people's hearts. So we need a new model of museum in order to serve the educational, inspirational, and communal goals that museums were created to bring about. Oakland Museum of California is where people see the humanity in others as clearly as they recognize it in themselves. So notice here the main idea, the urgency of the campaign. Why should a donor give now to this campaign? It's because we have a problem that's tearing our country apart, and this museum is the answer, or one of the answers to solving that. So they're putting a big, bold claim out there. Let's move on to the emotion of this campaign. We want the donor to feel something when she makes a gift to this campaign. So we thought deeply about what it is. And in this case, again, leaning back to the idea that this is not about a history or art museum, but it's about our culture and our society, the donor gets to feel like a change maker when she donates to this campaign, because she's funding something that everyone will point to as a groundbreaking success. So that was the emotional hook, or the emotional idea that we're trying to put forward on this. So, we're saying presenting exhibitions isn't enough. Your gift will do more, making it possible for the experiences that transform lives. And by doing that, you're transforming the city of Oakland and all who follow our example. Interesting, Oakland, just a small town in this huge country. So how can a donor feel like her gift locally is having a ripple effect outside of just her community? That's something that we thought about. So that was important for the donors to this campaign. We knew, because Oakland is in the San Francisco Bay Area, one of the target audiences was these sort of, I call them sort of newly minted, tech millionaires and billionaires and longtime philanthropists that they wanted to go after. So these are people who want to feel that their gift is having a major impact, not only on their community, yes, on their community, but also on the world larger. So this emotion is that they get to feel like a change maker when they support this campaign. Okay, and then the rationale. Well, why do we need the money? We are the proven antidote to divisiveness. This is only happening here because bringing community together is our intention and our goal. Essentially, that's what this museum has been doing with really innovative exhibitions. So, the rationale is basically, when you give the money here, we're promising to make a difference for you. You will see something happen that you won't see if you donate the same amount of money to all the other things that you're being asked to donate to. So the rationale is basically, you can trust us to make a difference on that problem we told you exists. We also created a personality for the campaign. This is something we do in advance of creating the communication tools, and you should do this too for your own campaigns. Think about the overall personality of your organization and what the personality is that helps you attract your arts patrons, your ticket buyers, and then think about your campaign and how that needs to be similar, and also how it might be slightly different, because it is a campaign that typically has a 3 to 5 year lifespan. For them, their personality attributes were that they're friendly, uncomplicated, not afraid to be provocative or playful. Again, they're not a traditional museum. They're energetic, they're contemporary and youthful, they're inspirational, optimistic, and they are questing and questioning. I won't give you the sort of strategic rationale for every one of these words, but trust me, it was very strategic. We were thinking deeply about their target audiences, who they needed to engage, and therefore what personality the campaign needed to have. Again, jot down your questions about this case study or anything else as we go along. So once we knew all of that, we were able to come up with a great theme, all in. At Oakland Museum of California, we're breaking through the walls that divide us as a community and a country. Here, the story is not only about Californian art, history, and natural surroundings, but it's also about what our art, history, and natural surroundings can teach us about ourselves and each other. While we've been uniquely successful in uniting the diverse people of Oakland and beyond, we're just getting started. We need you to join us by supporting the All In campaign, so together we can redefine what a next generation museum should be. So that's the overall kind of what you might think of as an elevator pitch or an introduction to the campaign. And this is how the visuals developed. So once you know what you're trying to say, you can create visuals that are not only stunning, but on brand for your institution and on brand for the campaign itself. So all in really means that we as individuals are all part of what the museum does every day. That's where the magic happens. And of course, you as a donor are all in when you support this campaign. And the brochure, which is what you're seeing here, how it opens up and shows people interacting at the museum. I love these photos here. They're so emotionally evocative, and they really reinforce the idea of this museum giving a chance for people to see themselves in new ways and to see each other in new ways, which was really the big promise of the campaign. color choices, the typeface choices, I'll go back and have you notice, see how little type there actually is? You know, we're not creating a brochure that crams in a big dissertation to the donor about why they should give. It's more emotionally evocative, which we use white space and photography and very thoughtful design to make that happen. So there we go. So I want to talk about developing the communications strategy and how you can do that for your own campaign. Oakland Museum of California audiences. I mentioned that we thought deeply about them in order to create those tools. And by the way, the museum's having tremendous success toward their goals. I think it's an $85 million campaign, and they've reached their interval goals. They're doing really well. So as I mentioned, you don't just start creating for donors. You could see me, I'm air quoting the word donors. And you don't segment your donors just demographically. You need to think about them psychographically. And what I mean by that is, what makes your donors tick? What do each category of donor, why do they get up in the morning? What keeps them up at night? What are they worried about? What are they excited about? How do they see themselves? And how can your campaign fit into their narrative of themselves, their own values, and what they want to be a part of? So before you can answer those questions, you've got to do a lot of deep thinking about that. So for Oakland Museum of California, we helped them narrow in on 4 different sort of audience profiles: a local investor, a new philanthropist, which might be one of these newer financially successful people, a cultural supporter. These are the tried and true museum donors that we have to keep involved, loving us. And then these transformative donors, these are people who are going to give huge gifts because they want something big to happen in the world. It's not about just their community. So once we knew all of these folks and what mattered to them, we were able to find the through line and the commonality that they each have in order to develop that all-in theme and everything that goes with it. As you're thinking in your own campaign about your target audiences, and by the way, I'd love you to just jot down right now the 3 to 6 target audience profiles that you might have in your own fundraising campaign. Jot them down. You're not going to have time right now to flesh anything out in detail, but maybe pick one of them and start to think about, like, what does that guy care about? What does he really care about that could make him fall in love with us and fall in love with our campaign? And as you develop these profiles, just remember that you want them to be naturally and organically referenced in every discussion and decision that is made moving forward. In other words, this is not just an exercise to do, and then you put those guys aside and you say, okay, now we're just going to focus on communications. I'm going to go back to them here. You want them front and center for the duration of your campaign. In fact, we have our clients print this page out. There's a deeper description on each of them, of course. And we want our clients to have that on their desk and referencing it at all times throughout both formal and informal communications. All right, so our campaign formula, I touched on it a couple of times already. We're going to break it down a little bit more deeply now. For a successful capital campaign, you need urgency, so people want to actually give to you now. You need emotion. People have got to feel something. And of course, you need a good rationale. And when you have all 3 of those, you will have a great case, or a great case for support. Also jargon, but it really means just the reason that a donor will ultimately decide to make a gift to your campaign. By the way, case for support is often used interchangeably with the idea of the actual physical brochure, case for support brochure, when in fact you create the case sort of strategically first, and then you think of the many ways to put forward your case for support. Yes, a brochure is one way. Yes, a video is another. Yes, your talking points are others. So I want you to think of it more holistically as the big idea behind your campaign. So the right balance of these 3 things is going to get you where you need to go. Now, what we see most often, and I'm sure you've all seen this, is capital campaign communications come forward asking the donor to give because there's a need. We need the money. Here's why we need the money. We need a new building. We need new seats in our theater. We need a new performance hall. or we need an endowment to be sustainable in the future. We need the money. That's only going to appeal to a few, a very few of your donors, the insiders who are already there. The fact that you need the money for something substantial or capital related is not emotional. There's maybe a little urgency in it, but it's mostly just rational. It's mostly just the non-feeling part of our brain. And a good campaign is going to add to that rationale with emotion and urgency. So if you look around at other campaign materials that you've seen, or perhaps even some that you've created yourself, you might notice that it's just talking about the problem, assuming that your donors will make their own translation and come to the right conclusion about wanting to give to you. But when you add the emotion, it makes it easier for them to make that shift and really say yes to you. So for your own campaign, I want you to think now, and even the, however many 50% of you who said you're not in a campaign, not thinking about a campaign, again, lucky for you, but you still have to do your annual fundraising. So if you're making an appeal to your donors, I want you to think now, why is this urgent? Okay, urgency means, yeah, I actually do want to write you a check right now because I see that if I don't, there's a missed opportunity. It's very easy for a donor to hear your pitch about why she should give to you and then to say, yeah, that's great. And just never get around to writing you the check. And so creating the urgency is a really important part of what you have to create. So I want you right now, right this minute, if you're working on a laptop or get out a piece of paper, however you want to do it, I want you to answer this question 10 times. And it's kind of free association. If we don't meet our campaign goals, blank will happen. I want you to write that out right now. Keep going until you get to 10. I'm going to give you a minute to do that. Okay. All right, let's come back together. I would love, I think we should open up the question section now if we can, Caroline, and I would love for people to share, let's see how we can do this. Let me just say, what I hope you noticed from this exercise is that the first thing you wrote down was quite different from the last thing you wrote down as you did this. What typically happens is that the first thing you write down is something features related. If we meet our goals, we'll build the new building. And then by the end of having to answer it 10 times, if we meet the new goals and we build our new building, our city will forevermore have a place to come and restore their souls in turbulent times. Okay, maybe I went a little far right there. Maybe you didn't get quite that far. But what I hope you noticed is the difference between your first answer and what you came up with at the end. So I'd love to just, in the question section, if someone would just type in something that they ended up with as, what we call the higher order. So maybe your 9th or 10th answer to the question. Share with us what you found would be the results of you reaching your campaign goal. And don't be shy. First of all, we don't know who you are, and whatever you share will just be useful to your colleagues. I'm going to invite someone to do that and move us on to the next question. Okay, futures. Oh, I do know who it was.
I do have one person that answered. Thank you for that, and we'll keep it anonymous. Futures are lost. If we don't meet our campaign goals, futures will be lost.
Beautiful. I love that. You've got to this higher order idea of futures lost. It's not about buildings. It's not about music. It's about what happens to people because of what you do every day and what the campaign will make possible. Fantastic example. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, we're going to ask another question now. Get ready. We're going to do this exercise a different way. If we do meet our campaign goals, what will happen? Oh, wait, did I just make a mistake? Hold on. If we don't meet, right, okay, futures are lost. Here we go. Now we're doing it the positive way, excuse me. If we do meet our campaign goals, what will happen? Here's the optimism. And let's do the same thing. Just free associate, answer it 10 times. I'm going to give you a minute to do that. Okay, great. So this is on the positive note. What wonderful thing will happen? From the last answer, futures could be, unlimited. Would anyone else like to share, or maybe the same person share what you got to? If we do meet our campaign goals, besides building a building or avoiding disaster, what wonderful things will happen as a result of your donor's gift? I'm going to move us forward. This is a really great exercise to do with your colleagues. So bring this back after the webinar and do this with folks and see what they come up with. We have a great response here. We keep building. I can't read that whole thing. Maybe someone
To the future. We keep building to the future.
Great. We're building to the future. And again, see how that transcends simply what you do every day, but what happens in your community and for real people as a result. So that's really great. Thank you for sharing that example. I love that exercise because it's really a great way to test yourself and work the muscle of stopping thinking about why you need the money, which is the buildings, the seats, the endowment, and what happens in the world as a result of the money. And that is why donors want to give. They don't want to build buildings. They want results. They want change. They want exciting things to happen. Okay, so that's the urgency. That's how you get at your urgency. Now, what is the emotional reason that your donor should want to give? The essential difference between emotion and reason is that emotion leads to action while reason leads to conclusions. And again, I touched on this earlier. It's really easy for you to make a case to a donor and have them say, yeah, I can definitely see why you need the money, and still not make a donation. And that's because you haven't infused enough emotion into your case. So we want to make sure that you don't overlook this. And by the way, emotion does not mean you have to make people cry. It does not have to be puppies and kittens and babies. Your work, and of course in music, there is a lot of emotion and there is a lot of positive impact on society. There's a way to make your donors feel something that will be the key to them falling in love with your campaign and wanting to give. So I want you to answer this and think about this. Remember when I had you jot down your audiences a few minutes ago? I hope you did that, and I hope you chose one of them. Think of one person and really personify him and her in your mind, him or her. Even give him a playful name if you want to. Don't imagine a group of donors. Imagine one person. And this person is a particular kind of donor and potential supporter to you. And imagine this person has just made a significant contribution to your campaign. How do they feel now? How do they actually feel when they make the gift? How do they feel about themselves? Answer that question, jot that down, and I'd love for someone to enter in the chat box what you come up with. And this should come a little bit quicker. Remember, for Oakland Museum of California, we were making people feel like a change maker. Wow, I am a change maker when I give to this campaign. I'm not just an arts patron, I am a change maker. So those are the kinds of things you want to dig for. Great, someone put in here, my donor is going to feel influential and powerful. Absolutely, don't overlook those great feelings you can incite for people. Can you read this one to me? It cut off a little bit, this last one.
Like a hero to our community.
Nice, I am a hero. I get to feel like a hero when I give. Here's what's beautiful about these examples, and thanks to both of you who shared. Taking the time to think about how you want to make your donor feel becomes your marching orders in every single communication you create for your campaign. When you know how you're trying to make them feel, suddenly you know how to write that next email to them, or how to create the messages for your campaign, or what to put in your brochure or your video or on your website, because you're trying to stoke a particular emotion in them. You keep your eye on that and your communications will get so much stronger. All right, thank you for that. I'm going to move us on. So we've got our urgency. Now we know how we're trying to make our donor feel. And so finally, what's the rational reason to give? Now, you may already know that it's rational because the building's falling down and we have to, build a new one, or the building's not up to code, or whatever those things might be. So we want you to think about it slightly differently. It's not just that you need the money, okay? That's baked in. You're going to get to make that point. But instead, ask yourselves, why should your stakeholder, your donor, whoever you were just talking about and thinking about in the last exercise, how should that person trust you? Why should they trust you? Why should they believe that you're going to succeed with their money? No donor wants to be asked to give it to a campaign that they're not 100% sure is not only going to achieve its fundraising goals, but then do with the money what is being promised. So what is it that you can say to your donor so that they know that it'll succeed? For some of our clients, the simple answer is, remember that last campaign we ran 5 years ago, 10 years ago? We did it then, we're gonna do it again. So that may be the answer for you, but there may be other reasons that people can trust you. Maybe they trust you because the most influential person in your town is the leader of the campaign and everyone knows that woman's gonna succeed. Maybe it's because your executive director or musical director is beloved and no one would ever let that person down. There are a lot of different ways you can get at this, but you've got to go beyond just we need the money into here's why you can trust us to do what we're saying we're going to do. I'll give you a moment to think about that.
We have one example of do you want me to read this out, Jenny?
Please, yeah.
We've been doing this work successfully since 1950.
Great. One comment on the 1950 kind of thing, or the historical look back. Be careful if you talk about your longevity, your history when you were founded, that doesn't inadvertently make you sound stale or out of touch, or that it just seems like an irrelevant fact. Just because you've been, and I don't mean to criticize this answer because it may be perfectly appropriate for you, but be aware of, just because we've been around since 1918 doesn't mean we're great. Maybe we've been mediocre since 1918. So you need to unpack for people, what your longevity or your founding year should mean to them in terms of benefit. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so those are the 3 exercises you can do to start to think about the shape that your communication should take. And a reminder here again, we've talked about urgency, emotion, and rationale for making a great case. All right, again, jot down your questions, which I'll be taking at the end. All right, so what are the key traits of a good campaign theme? So you've thought now deeply about your donors. You know what they're interested in. You've got your campaign formula, at least conceptually. So now you're going to come up with a theme for your campaign. And again, capital, endowment, combination, annual, what's the theme? Here's what you want to make sure to do when you create it. Good themes for any kind of a campaign engages the reader, or I'll say, the donor, the reader who's looking at your materials or listening to them, engaging them. And what we mean by that is, don't just talk about you and your organization, talk about them and their role in it and how they're part of it. And if you don't know how to do that succinctly, one of the easiest tricks that we've found is to use the word you. Forcing yourself to use the word you makes you create the communications focus through the lens of the person you're addressing. In fact, something I've been challenging myself to do is when I start an email to someone, I try to start with the word you, and it will change. It so quickly changes how I communicate and what I say. And I'd like each of you on the call today to try that this afternoon. On the next email you create, start it with the word you instead of how you might start it, which is I'm writing to you today, or I thought this, or I want that. Start with the word you and see how it changes your communication. That will engage the reader, engage the donor. A good theme is going to be easy to say. If you make your campaign name too long, too cumbersome, no one's going to say it and no one's going to remember it. So don't get so highfalutin trying to get all the words in there. Come up with something that's short and sweet. Remember Oakland Museum of California's all in. So make it as short and sweet as you can so that people can and want to say it. Also, when you create a theme, to the best of your ability, the words themselves should be visual. They should evoke a picture in people's mind as best as you can. And that's another argument against long titles and dry words. You actually want to create something that makes people see something, and I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. Of course, we've talked a lot about emotion today, and your theme should evoke emotion. You want people to feel something the first time they hear the name of your campaign. And by the way, in a 5-year campaign, say, that's the average duration of one of these things, you're going to say that name thousands of times. You and your fellow colleagues and your board members and everyone on the fundraising committee, you're going to be throwing that name around constantly. So make sure that it becomes a key message and a soundbite that makes people feel something every time you use it. Here's some examples of good themes. Youth outside, open spaces, open minds. This is an organization that takes kids who typically live in the inner city and never get to see nature outside, out into nature, so that they can become the stewards of tomorrow for our planet. So the theme is open spaces, open minds. It's short, it's sweet, it's visual, it's emotional, it meets all of the criteria. This is for the Stanford Humanities Center, and their theme is think of it this way. The humanities are what keep us all tied together, and it's important that we look at them in every direction and keep them front and center. So think of it this way is the title of their fundraising campaign. Forever Forest, the campaign for the Redwoods. Forever Forest is the short, sweet theme of this campaign. And look how we cheated a little bit by making a kind of a tagline, the campaign for the Redwoods. So that tells people exactly what it is. By the way, this is a $120 million campaign that's underway now. So you see it meets all of the criteria. It's short, it's sweet, easy to say, easy to remember. It makes you feel something. Here's something else we did for Save the Redwoods some years ago. You can be a hero. Interesting. One of our participants here said that becoming a hero is how someone feels when they give to that campaign. And we absolutely leverage that for this campaign. Let's live our art. This is for the East Pal Epicenter Arts, and Let's Live Our Art is the campaign theme for them. It's an invitation. Notice how Let's Live invites, engages the reader. It's not saying we're living our art, won't you give us a donation? It's saying let's together, we live our art, which of course invites the donor right in. Ready for Next is the theme for the Green Beret Foundation's fundraising campaign. This is terminology that means a lot to Green Berets and their families. Ready for Next, short, sweet, and extremely emotional. We're Here. This is for the San Francisco AIDS Foundation, taking a phrase from the community and taking it back and leveraging it here in a short, sweet campaign theme. Love to show you too, what we did is that we actually made 3 covers of this brochure with real men in the community in San Francisco, in the gay community in San Francisco, so that, and you can see they have slightly different profiles. We've got an older donor, a younger donor, we've got a man of color, And so if you're going to have a meeting with your donor, you pick the one that you think will feel most comfortable and familiar to them. So we're here is the theme there. Here's one that's more serious and august. For the Greater Glory is the name of this. Not as short, For the Greater Glory, with 4 words, but it gets shortcutted as Greater Glory Campaign, which is very appropriate for Georgetown Preparatory School, which is a Jesuit high school. And again, we have this little sort of cheater tagline here, Georgetown Prep's Legacy Campaign. So as long as your main theme is short and sweet, you can add surrounding words around it in printed materials to make it more clear. And finally, this is our day, San Francisco Day School. This is the theme for their capital campaign. This is our day. Short, sweet, and it's a play on their name. So I hope those inspired you. Once you have your campaign theme, well, what do you do next? You're getting ready to create language that will help you introduce the campaign. You need talking points. You need a way to talk about it. Your brochure, your video, your website, they're not going to do the asking for you. You're going to need to do it yourself, and you're going to need key messaging that you can use in every setting. Formal conversations with donors, informal ad hoc conversations when you run into someone at the grocery store, and language that you can use on your homepage, in your website, on the inside cover of your brochure. So we want you to create campaign messages, and I want to show you how to create a fabulous, what we call a belief message. And here's the purpose of your belief message. By the way, one belief message for your campaign. Not one belief message for each of your types of donors, but one overall belief message that serves as the introduction. And its job is to define your vision. What do you see as possible with this campaign? All you're trying to do is give high-level information. You're not trying to tell your donor everything there is to know. It's really just an introduction. Sharing your vision, I don't know why that's on here twice. Building comprehension. You want people to have just a very basic understanding of what you're talking about. And you do want to suggest the problem that donors can solve. Again, you're not going to write a big dissertation, but you're just going to write artfully so that they get a nod at kind of what's wrong, what's causing the need for the campaign. Once you develop this belief message, when will you use it? Well, we like to say in an elevator. This belief message is just another term for elevator pitch. And, elevator pitch is that sort of pre-planned presentation that you have in your back pocket that you've memorized and you can give at any moment. And I always imagine in Hollywood, if you're an aspiring screenwriter and you have a great idea for a movie and you find yourself, on an elevator with, I don't know, Steven Spielberg, you don't get to ride the elevator with him and take him out for coffee to pitch your idea, right? He's not going to coffee with you. So you've got to be ready to give him your pitch right then and there. And so in as few words as possible, you're telling Steven Spielberg why he should listen to your screenplay idea. So that's what you want your belief message to do. It's going to be short and sweet and clear and interesting enough to make someone want to carry on the conversation with you. All right. Once you have this belief message, you're going to use it at fundraising events, when introducing yourself to a group, of course, when you're talking to donors, on the homepage of your microsite, of course, in your brochure. So basically, you want to use it everywhere and frequently and repetitively, because that's what's going to give your campaign a lot of juice. Let me show you a bad belief message. This is one that doesn't meet the criteria. The Acton Center has embarked on a $4.2 million capital campaign to purchase and renovate additional space. The demand for services has increased at an unprecedented rate, and the Acton Center has maxed out usable space. We simply cannot turn people away because of space limitations. The investment in more space will give great returns via better client care and more effective service delivery for our community. Okay, we get it. They need space. But there's nothing emotional here. There's nothing urgent here. It's just all about them and the fact that they want space. So this has essentially broken, every rule. Certainly doesn't engage the donor. Let's look at another one. As a nonprofit symphony, this marks the first major capital campaign in more than 50 years. Each year, we reinvest in people, facilities, and programs to further the symphony's mission, great music for a great city. You can support this $623 million project. So that's also not a good message, and probably by now you could tell me why. It's making a lot of mistakes, and certainly no donor is going to feel like this is relevant to her when the goal is $623 million. Let me do this one for you again. You've seen it once. Now that you've heard and thought more about good communications, at Oakland Museum of California, we're breaking through the walls that divide us as a community and a country. Here, the story is not only about Californian art, history, and natural surroundings, but it's also about what our art, history, and natural surroundings can teach us about ourselves and each other. While we've been uniquely successful in uniting the diverse people of Oakland and beyond, we're just getting started. We need you to join us by supporting the All In campaign, so together we can redefine what a next generation museum should be. So that's what we call a belief message that can introduce your campaign to all your different types of donors. Of course, you will still deeply customize when you get ready to go and ask a particular donor or family for a donation. This is introductory language. And I want you to have a belief message for your campaign. And how else to get one but through a Mad Lib? So Mad Libs are a kid's game where there's a story, but a lot of the words have been taken out, and you plug words in, and at the end, a silly and hilarious story emerges. But we've created one for you that actually works to make sense. And here's the formula. Here's how it works. The belief message includes your name, your organization's name. By the way, use your whole name, not a shortcut. There's something you believe. There's a deeply held value that your organization is almost its North Star. And so this first sentence should, as plainly as possible, say what that is. Use colloquial language and say what you really mean. That can really grab people's attention. That's the first sentence. Then you move on. We've embarked on a campaign to verb object. I want this verb to be an action verb, a visual verb, something that people can see, as opposed to a word like advocate or, I don't know, sustain, things like that. Okay, and for whom? Who are your constituents? Who are you doing this for? Is it for the community? Is it for your musicians? Is it for children? Who are you really ultimately serving, and who is the donor supporting? And then finally, you end with a problem statement. Why are we doing this? Because there's a problem, and we're here to solve it. By the way, the problem is not we need to raise $623 million. The problem is there's something missing in our community or our society or our culture that this campaign is actually solving. So I'm going to go through this now. I wanted to give you just a minute to play around with this. And so let me go to this next slide to show you how this breaks down. The first sentence, the first concept is we believe, therefore we do. Why? Because if we don't, there's a problem. A lot of people prefer to end their belief message with something positive happens. So if you want to end on an up note, you absolutely can. I want you to write your own belief message, and you're going to do that as soon as we end this webinar today. I want you to sit down, do not go get a sandwich for lunch, sit down and draft your belief message. And so as a matter of fact, I'm going to go back right here and let you take a screenshot of this. Please take a screenshot of this so that you have it at the ready so that you can work on your message right after this. All right. And I'll share a couple more for your inspiration. At San Francisco Day School, we believe that when intellect and imagination are intertwined, our students delight in the discovery of connection, in their academic and creative pursuits, in their relationships, and in all that they experience here. Every day, we help our students emerge as flexible and resourceful learners, because when we do, our students light up with the call and capacity to take on the complexities of their day and of a diverse world. San Francisco Day School, this is our day. Do we have time to show the video, or are we going to do a hard stop at noon, Caroline?
We can show the video. No questions have come in. So, and we can always, if anyone has any questions, we can get those answered by having them email you later. So if you'd like me to show it, I will go ahead and show it.
Great. Let's go ahead and show how this takes all
All
the
right.
best practices and wraps it into a single video.
Experiences that bridge intellect and imagination. Mindsets that encourage and empower growth.
Community relationships that inspire and connect.
Space to create.
The elbow room to innovate. A place to come together.
This is our day.
San Francisco Day School is a wonderful place for children. Our goal is to really have children be creative, to use their imaginations, and take care of their world.
We want to give them room to play, to stretch, to run, to breathe, to grow.
A great thing about our school is we're all flexible learners. We're flexible teachers and we're flexible students.
This is a school of visionaries. That's San Francisco Day School.
We have grown. I think part of that is our really strong reputation in San Francisco.
We offer the children a lot of different ways of creating. We're spilling out of the art studio. When you think about having materials and tools for 400 children, being able to design the studio from scratch with the idea of using UDL, I think is going to make a gigantic difference.
And because the Universal Design for Learning framework is designed to help reduce barriers for students, I think it'll be really wonderful to provide more space to explore, to experiment, engage in more hands-on activities and project-based learning.
This is the perfect time for this campaign. Everyone is so excited about teaching in this new way. I love to bring art into science. We're going to collaborate and come up with really exciting, motivating projects that we'll teach together.
We have such a wonderful performing arts program here, and we have a wonderful athletic program here. Unfortunately, they're often competing for space. I'm so excited to see both grow and both feel like they have a home.
This would be a place not just for educators, but for the community. A school should be a community place.
San Francisco Day School is a very urban school, and that's great because we can take a bus downtown, we can walk to art galleries and science museums. But one thing I'm super excited about is the potential to have more green spaces where we can grow vegetables, we can teach outdoors.
Our teachers are who and what enables this experience for the students. We have an obligation to be the school that helps teachers continue to be able to afford to live in San Francisco.
We want faculty here who represent the city. If we really want to be the intellectual, imaginative place that I know we are, we need space for our kids to show what they can do.
This is a crucial time for San Francisco Day School. These students are inquisitive. They're designers, they're problem solvers, they're collaborators, and we need to give them not only the space, but the room to fulfill their learning, their potential. This takes you.
This takes all of us.
This is who we are.
This is what we do.
This is our home.
This is our day.
All right, this is Jenny. I am the presenter again, I believe. Nope. There we go. Okay, so I'm happy to stay on the line if anyone does want to ask a question. And there are handouts. I'm not sure if Sarah said that, but attached to this, you should be able to get. We're also going to send you this at the end of today. I'm going to send you some other links and resources and materials that you can all use. But as I said, I would be very happy if you want to unmute Caroline. If anyone has any questions they just want to ask and others can benefit from the question and answer. So.
Jenny, it's Sarah. We do have one question that's come in, and others feel free to shoot a few more in. We'll stay on for a few more minutes. One person said or asked, is in the classical world, the audience and donor base is mostly older. How do we build compelling messages that appeals to the current donor base, but also draws in younger people?
Great question. So remember, when you're designing your audiences, you're thinking deeply about what matters to all of them, and they do have something in common. If they're a patron of your organization, they already care about what you're doing, and it doesn't matter if some are old and some are young, or some are wealthier than others. What you're looking for is the commonalities, what they have in common. As I said, you will still deeply customize your ask for each donor or donor family, but you're thinking big picture. You know, you want these messages to be inspirational and emotional and evocative. And so the feeling in someone's heart when they enjoy a symphony orchestra is the same, I'd say, regardless of age. So it may be something about how, you know, music can heal the world and the community, and it may be something as, you know, we want to be a world-class city, and a world-class city deserves a world-class orchestra. So you just really have to dig in, and instead of thinking of your donors as being so different, find out what they have in common.
Great. Anybody else have a final question they want to type in? And while we're waiting, I will just remind there are 2 linked PDF handouts that Jenny has provided. Those will also come to you in the follow-up email from us as well. These are, do you want to mention what these are, Jenny, these 2 handouts?
Yeah, it summarizes everything we talked about. It's the how to make your case, so the campaign formula in more detail, and also the minute message model that I referenced. We focused very quickly on the belief message, but those handouts also have the full model there. And as I said, I really encourage you to draft a belief message today while it's fresh in your mind.
Great. Okay. I'm going to make myself the presenter again, and we're just going to wrap up. Great. So I just want to thank Jenny once more for both doing this at our conference, this content at our conference, and coming back and doing this webinar again. It's obviously evergreen information and really good for us to know. Like we said, we'll be sending out an email after this webinar with a link to a survey that we'd appreciate you all taking, with how to tell you to access the recording of this webinar, and with the handouts that Jenny has provided. And I think Jenny will also be following up as well. She'll be reaching out with some additional information. So we've got a bunch of people saying thank you. I want to echo that. Just want to remind everybody we have another webinar coming up in May on a totally different topic, but also really important, about composer diversity in practice and planning. Again, this is someone who presented at our conference, Rob Deemer. He founded this composer diversity project and created this amazing database where you can, a tool that you can use in doing your programming to find diverse composers. It's all kind of created for you and collated for you. So we'll have Rob talk about that. And like I said, look for some emails from us and from Jenny today. And thank you all so much for being part of this webinar today.
Thank you.